Welcome, Christina and Gary, to Cultivate. I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing this personal and private story, and hopefully it will inspire some others to think about cannabis as an exit drug.
Thanks, Jennifer. We appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, what has transpired for both of you and, these struggles with opioids.
We had a pretty amazing story. We both come from the Midwest, and Gary had a failed cervical neck fusion several years ago. Along with that, he also has spinal stenosis and degenerative disc disease in his upper spine and neck. So he deals with a lot of upper body pain on a regular basis. Growing up in the Midwest, living in the Midwest, of course, we always were taught that what the doctor says is gospel. So when he would go to his monthly doctor's appointments and they would just continue to prescribe the opiates, he would just continue to take them. And unfortunately, this went on for about 10 years. So he was a legal opiate addict for almost 10 years, off and on at some points, but for almost 10 years solid. And as the pain continued and he started to go through different procedures, he was about every 6 to 10 months, he was actually going to a pain clinic in Minneapolis where they would put needles in the back of his neck and burn the nerve endings off so he couldn't feel the pain. Well, the problem with that is nerve endings do grow back, and when they do grow back, the pain comes back. And the more often you do this, the more often the nerve endings grow back, and the more often you have to go in and have it done. And this wasn't a cheap procedure to have done, so there was a lot of out-of-pocket costs and things too. It was just kind of a round robin, a circle that we were in. Every month we would go to the doctor. Every month we would beg for alternatives. Is there something else that we can do? And every month the doctors just said, opiates are going to be a part of your pain management for the rest of your life. So it was a struggle in the Midwest.
Now, first, how long does it take, how long did the nerves take to grow back? And how many pills and milligrams did you end up taking a day?
Let's see, my first procedure, all went well for about 8 months with the first procedure until the pain started coming back through the nerves, after they burned them. The next procedure lasted about 6 months. And I think the following procedure maybe less, maybe 4 to 6 months. So yeah, and the medications I was on, they had me on 4 hydrocodone a day, 4 Percocets or oxycodone, and 2 fentanyl patches. And I was supposed to function.
Right. And then on top of that, they also had him, obviously, he was taking medications for high blood pressure. He was taking medications for high cholesterol. He was on Xanax for social anxiety. He literally was a walking pharmacy. They had him taking Flexeril for muscle pain. They had him taking gabapentin for nerve pain. I mean, the amount of drugs was ridiculous that they had him taking, and he was only 40 years old. So obviously we knew that there had to be other options. There had to be alternatives. But unfortunately, the drugs took their toll. Eventually, I watched them change my husband. I watched them change him into someone I didn't recognize. And then I lost my mother to cancer and went through a big family drama. And I had my own breakdown from anxiety and family drama issues after the loss of my mom. And then at one point I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. We've got to find something else. And I left him. I left him in Minneapolis. I took $500 cash and what I could carry in my car, and my brakes went out just north of Denver. And so it was that experience that landed me in Denver. About a week into that experience, I was still homeless. I was living in a hostel at this point. And I got offered a job in the industry, and I jumped on it. And once I landed in the industry and started to listen and understand, I paid attention when the vendors would come in and talk to us about their products. And then when I wasn't at work, I would study. I would get online at night and I would read research and studies and other things that are out there. And I was about 6 weeks into the industry, and I called him in Minneapolis and I said, hey, we have hope. I think I may have found an alternative out here, but I said, you're going to have to trust me. And he says, what do I got to do? So we packed up everything that he had in Minnesota. We brought him out here to Denver. I told him we're not going to have the same lifestyle. I used to be I was a 20-year career IT person before coming to Denver. And at this point, I was making minimum wage. So it was definitely a different lifestyle that we had. But on March 18th, 2016, Gary took his last opiate and never looked back. There was no withdrawal. There was no side effects. There was no symptoms. There was nothing. He walked away from opiates without a single symptom of withdrawal.
So what, oh my God, that's amazing. Tell me about what you were taking as far as cannabis and the dosage.
First, I started out with a very high CBD treatment with Mary's medicinals. Everything, capsules, tincture drops, the pain patches, the gel pen, also THC edibles. I would dose off and on about 100 milligrams total throughout the day, dosing about 20 to 30 to 40 milligrams maybe.
Yeah, the high CBDs, he was taking probably in the neighborhood of 300 to 500 milligrams of CBDs a day in the beginning. But we literally attribute that to what kept him from any of the negative side effects of withdrawal. Because when we lived in Minnesota, even if his prescriptions would lapse for 2 or 3 days, we would watch withdrawal kick in within hours. He would start to have the withdrawal symptoms 4 or 5 hours after a missed dose. So the fact that he didn't have any of those symptoms coming out here and using CBDs and THC products was absolutely incredible for us.
And you said you did a lot of research. So are you the one who said, okay, I've read and here's what we're going to start with? Or did you talk to somebody about, how did that happen?
Most of it was just my own research. Like I said there in the beginning, I was working in a dispensary full-time as a bud tender or cannabis advisor. When I wasn't in the dispensary, when I was at home, I spent all my time researching and reading and trying to understand the endocannabinoid system and how these things affect our body. Sometimes I was spending 12 to 14 hours a day researching cannabis throughout 2016. That eventually, the knowledge that I gained through doing that is what led to my career now as a writer in the cannabis industry. But the most amazing thing I think for us is the fact that we have found our health and wellness and vitality. And I tell people a lot of times, we lost, between the two of us, we lost 13 prescriptions, we lost almost 200 pounds, and we gained at least 15 years back on our life. So to me, it's a win-win.
Absolutely. I mean, that is unheard of. At what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to stop all the opiates and take the chance that you weren't going to go through withdrawal?
As soon as I got to Colorado and, I got into the CBD and THC treatments, I knew no more opiates. This is my future here. This is my medication now. So goodbye, opiates.
Wow. That's
and it really seemed like it was that easy for him too. It seemed like it was that easy. He just said, you know what, I'm done with this. And we turned to cannabis and that was it. He just wiped the slate clean.
Day 10 of what I should have been going through withdrawal after 10 days of my last pill, I was hiking a Garden of the Gods, just like a normal person. No withdrawal at all.
And no pain.
And no pain.
Gary, when you came here, did you think, this isn't going to work? There's no way this is going to work. Or what did you
No, I actually came out here with a very open mind. I had wanted to get off the opiates for a long time. They were creating more pain than they were helping. So I said no more. I mean, 10 years is a long time to be on opiates, and the doctors were killing me and I didn't let them.
it's just amazing to me that you go to the doctor and they're just, yeah, we're going to give you more pills and more pills. They're not talking about
Right.
your diet or, exercise or meditation or, any of those other things as well. One of the things that you said early on, Christina, was he was a legal opioid addict.
Yeah.
I have never heard that term, and that is legitimately such a perfect term for that.
Right, exactly, because that's exactly what he was. He followed his instructions. He did exactly what the doctors told him to do. Take these opiates at this amount, throughout the day at this time, and that's what he did. I mean, we literally went through those times where you're going through and counting his prescriptions to make sure that he's still taking them exactly as the doctor prescribes. And so we did exactly what the doctors told us to do. He did physical therapy, he did these other treatments, he took his opiates, he took the nerve pain pills, he did everything that the doctor said.
This was just a vicious cycle. There was never any long-term, fix to my problem. It's always going to be this vicious cycle of pills and procedures, and we never got an answer. Well, where are we going with this?
Right.
What's your solution to my neck problem? They didn't have one. Here's all these pills. Take these.
Right. And, in defense of doctors, they have, a semester in their freshman year of medical school about nutrition.
Right.
I see moving forward somebody that's in between Eastern and Western medicine that can put it all together,
Yes.
that actually knows, the medical part, but also knows, the supplement, nutraceutical, and alternative medications. I think that is definitely going to be some kind of a position moving forward.
I absolutely agree.
And it's interesting that you said that you started with CBD. I ran across an article that a scientist is doing huge testing on CBD, and actually this is about relapse. But she talks about the crisis, and she talks about how it's super hard because, of course, it's a Schedule I drug still, although there's some weird things about that, and it just got pushed to a Schedule V or something. I'm not sure. I need to look up more about that, but
Epidiolex.
Epidiolex.
Just Epidiolex. This is Schedule V. Yep.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Right.
We stepped up on that for GW Pharma. How do we, moving forward, convince people that this is not the devil's weed, that just because your doctor, well, some doctors now recommend it, but just because your doctor is against it, how do we break that stigma and get people to at least try this? It can't kill you. It cannot hurt you.
Right.
What's the problem? What do you think people are, upset about or not scared about?
The number one thing that I say to people in this circumstance, and a lot of times it is people in the medical profession that I talk to, they say, sorry, we just had a bird run into the window.
That means your window's
right?
Yeah.
What I normally say to people in this circumstance is, doctors a lot of times about marijuana and cannabis as a medicine, the first reaction that they have is, well, we don't know the long-term side effects of cannabis. And my problem with that statement is that we absolutely know the long-term side effects of opiates. We know that they lead to death. We know that they lead to addiction. Cannabis is not going to lead to someone's demise when it's used appropriately. And most of us know how to use it appropriately nowadays. It's not us going out and learning something from an older sibling in our teenage years. This is someone taking an actual effort to use the herb in an appropriate way to gain health and wellness. And we've learned how to do that. And if we can learn how to do that, other people can learn how to do this too. So that's the main thing that I try to teach to people, is that anybody can do what we've done. It just takes the effort and the ability to learn and to ask those right questions.
Well, and it's interesting because, as we know, pharma pretty much owns everything, including the FDA. And for us who know about cannabis, know what's going on, the backstory and why it's not legal and how pharma needs to make money off of it, et cetera, et cetera. Several pharmaceutical companies have been sued because they lied about it being addictive. And of course, you know, we don't hear too many things about that, but cannabis is not addictive. It is habit forming, but not addictive, which is completely different. And Gary, I'm sure that what you found is you can live a normal life now.
Right.
Versus what you said on opiates, where you were just checked out, depressed, anxiety. You can live a normal life on cannabis, right?
Absolutely.
Much better life on cannabis than on the pharmaceuticals.
I'm not counting pills anymore. You know, I don't worry about bridging that gap from one doctor's appointment to the next. It's just not there. And I love
Well,
it.
and like you stated too, Jennifer, there's a lot of side effects with those pharmaceuticals. To get the benefits from them, a lot of times it's a trade-off for some other bad side effect or something that you don't necessarily want to deal with. When I was on antidepressants and anxiety medications, the side effects of those made me groggy and disassociated, and so they gave me Ritalin to counteract those side effects.
And Adderall.
So, you know, I was taking legal meth to counteract the side effects of the anxiety medications and the antidepressants. And it just gets into this round robin, and eventually you can't get out of it, and it does more damage to your body than good. So when we finally cut the ties with the pharmaceuticals and said, no, we're going to take accountability for our own health and started taking the right steps, that's when things started to turn around for us.
Well, and a lot of people that have not looked into the history of cannabis, it goes back to 2900 BC with the Chinese emperor that talks about how marijuana, you know, is an amazing medicine for a lot of things. And I would encourage people to go to procon.org and search marijuana history. It's fascinating, and it goes through all the history, starting with when in the US we started to create this reefer madness and how slowly the states, you know, fell off. But it's incredible how many people have died and are suffering huge because we have been lied to about this plant. And thank you so much for coming on. I know it took a lot of guts to do this, and Gary, congratulations. I mean, this is a huge thing for you, and I encourage you to share this story. I really do, because like you said, if you can do it, other people can do it.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
Jennifer. Thank you very much.
We love to tell our story, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
You too.
Our next story features a young lady named Tatum Robson. And I think you're going to find this story very unique and enlightening, because she suffered from endometriosis as a young woman so bad that she came up with her own solution. Tatum, welcome to Cultivate.
Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome.
So, yeah, my name is Tatum, and that is exactly what happened. I had some really terrible periods from age 11, which is earlier, but becoming more and more of the norm. And, you know, it just started to get worse and worse. After a while, I started noticing, you know, well, first I had gone to doctors. I'd gone to a lot of doctors. They wanted to put me on birth control, which I tried at 13. It went very badly. It can be, you know, really detrimental to mental health, especially at that age. So I always, you know, like to caution people about birth control, because it is kind of the go-to thing. So basically, that was kind of the only option that doctors were giving me: birth control, and also telling me that it was normal. So I normalized it myself. As I got older, I started talking to friends and noticing that my symptoms really weren't normal. You know, I would say, yeah, you know, before you're going to start your period, how it hurts so bad just to go to the bathroom, to take a bowel movement, to have sex, to do any of these really basic things would put me in tears and cause incredible pain. And there's a whole slew of symptoms that actually affect you outside of a period. And so that's what's really interesting about this condition. What's also interesting is, you know, you said my story is unique, and in a lot of ways it is, but what I've been learning more and more is that it's actually really common. You know, there's been comparisons of the number of women with endometriosis compared to diabetes, actually. And they use this comparison to point out the amount of recognition and the amount of research that goes into these conditions. And so it's really interesting. I think it really says a lot about the state of women's health in general, and just that, you know, we need to be doing better for women and any menstruator. So yeah, I kind of, after a while, started realizing that this wasn't normal, and it started to affect, you know, almost my entire life. It wasn't just my period. It would start to affect me in between my periods. So about 3 weeks out of a month, I would be experiencing symptoms. For at least a week or two, I would be debilitated in bed, on a lot of Vicodin and still in pain. Mostly just trying to knock myself out until it passed. So yeah, it was definitely tough. One of the, you know, really tough things too was when I had normalized this pain so much, and that's something that was really upsetting to me because I had actually put myself in some dangerous situations because of that. I had one instance where after sex, I had, you know, just completely broken down. I was shaking and sweating and vomiting, and, you know, I couldn't move. My partner was begging to take me to the hospital, and I refused to go because it was normal to me. And I told him, no, this is just, you know, this is how it is. This is what I'm used to. I later learned that I was at risk. It's very possible that there were cysts rupturing in my body, and actually there is a risk of internal bleeding. So that's a story I like to share because I've talked to so many people who, you know, normalize and actually put themselves in danger because of that. And so really want to move away from that and know that, you know, there are ways to balance your hormones and to get your body back on track. So you're not experiencing these kind of symptoms, not just for endometriosis, but any period pain in general.
So it's interesting because I feel in general, we don't talk about menstruation or periods, like that weird thing. And, you know, it's a huge part of life. And you mentioned that you got your period at 11. Do you know that I read the China study, whether people are for or against it. He explained that the average age for menses should be around 17.
Yep.
And it is around 17 in China.
Yeah.
But here it's all the hormones and et cetera that we put in our food. So it's extremely worrisome. And I don't think a lot of people know that or understand that. So, and I understand endometriosis probably is more common. However, you are the first person that I heard about it connected to cannabis and to talk about that. So let's talk about how you, you know, started your relationship with cannabis.
Yeah, definitely. So I started a pretty early relationship with cannabis. I was definitely self-medicating my period pain for one. But I had also, you know, I was just really fascinated with this plant. I had read Jack Herr's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, pretty early on, and, you know, learned that cannabis was, you know, not just for smoking and getting high, but it had this potential for food, fuel, and fiber. And that really sparked an interest. So I was about 14 when I started doing some cannabis activism with Phoenix NORML, the National Organization for Reform in Marijuana Laws. And so cannabis has been a very big part of my life from early on. I was working with a lot of veterans, a lot of people with epilepsy, cancer, folks that only had this illegal choice to help live their lives. And so we would go out and have potlucks and support each other and, you know, protest. And yeah, cannabis has always been important and definitely tied to my period because it helps so much. Eventually, you know, I didn't like the amount of high that I had to feel just to get some relief. And so I started learning a lot about CBD, and that was really such an amazing breakthrough for me, and I know for a lot of other people. So it was really exciting to learn about that. So I've always been interested in other herbs as well. And so that's what I really love about, you know, what led me to this product that we ended up creating, is a combination of, you know, CBD from cannabis. It's a full spectrum CBD hemp extract infused with a lot of other really amazing herbs. And so I think that's another way to show people that, you know, cannabis is another herb, you know, and they're kind of on the same level, and they all have these different properties, and, you know, we should learn about it and embrace it.
Absolutely. Well, and we can see that you are in some kind of lab, and there's some herbs and everything else. So let's talk about what led you to where you are right now.
Definitely. So it was actually kind of a really mind-blowing story for me. I was at one of my lowest points. My endometriosis had really taken a quick downturn. You know, it was something that affected my life and was, you know, it was hurting, but I had to go to the ER a couple times. Things were just really not looking good. So I wasn't working. You know, that's something really common with folks with endometriosis, is not being able to hold a job because you have to miss so much. So that's when I was in my bedroom living at my parents' house trying to, you know, get back on my feet. And that gave me a lot of time while I was sick to do even more research on some different herbs, some different things. I found myself at a hemp conference, and I ended up getting connected with Ed Lehrberger, the CEO of Pure Kind Botanicals. Yeah, I have this memory of, you know, talking to some women about their periods because it's one of my favorite things to do. So, and, you know, yeah, so, and, you know, we had been talking a lot about what he was doing, and he said, you know, our company wants to make a product like this. They didn't really have any women working here. And so I really liked that he wanted to work with, you know, a menstruator, someone that knows the experience, to help create this product. And so, you know, we talked over the next few months, and I moved out to Denver. That was a year ago, as of September last month. So been here a year now, and we just got right to work. Started formulating, started testing. We did extensive beta testing. We designed a whole trial process so we could make sure this worked. What was interesting is that when I started taking this product, I didn't feel anything. For 3 months, I was completely discouraged. You know, this company had brought me out here. We put all this time and money, and they put all this faith in me. And, you know, we created something that I was thinking wasn't going to work. I started slowly getting effects. And so that's one of the really cool things I learned too, is that, you know, like a lot of natural solutions, it really takes time. And what it's doing is very gently working with your body to improve your body's natural functions. And so I was getting my hormones balanced, and it took time. Eventually, I mean, it's a year later, and I can honestly say every single one of my symptoms is almost eradicated. I have a slight amount of pain. I might take an Advil or two once a month, and that is a drastic change from what I was experiencing. I got every aspect of my social life, my work life, my intimate life back because of this product. So I couldn't be happier.
Well, let's talk about the product. Do you have any there?
Yes, I do. So we actually have two products. We have our Menstrual Relief. I'm going to hold it up here and actually give you guys a little show of it. Oh, there we go. So this product has a lot of different herbs. It's designed for just basic menstrual problems. And we wanted something for the common menstruator, because I don't think period pain is normal. I don't think it has to be. And you can see it's got this nice gold color. We have our CBD and a lot of other really amazing herbs, clamp bark, ashwagandha, black pepper, lots of fun stuff to learn about. And so the second product, which is the one that I'm most excited about, is going to be the Menstrual Relief Plus. This one was specifically designed for symptoms associated with endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and lots of other, menstrual disorders that have a lot of common issues, mostly rooted in hormone imbalance. And I really wanted it to be kind of a nice, comfy, really inviting taste. And so we, messed a lot with a lot of chai herbs. One of the scientists we're working with is from India, and he's really familiar with these. So, this one has a little bit of a darker situation. What's that? Yeah.
Just a little bit darker, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be the turmeric, fennel. So we were going for kind of a chai flavor. So it's something that, I actually really look forward to taking every day.
That is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I know that you felt like cannabis would work, but really at the end of the day, do you think that it would have worked this well for you?
I would have never expected it. And honestly, what was even more exciting was when the testimonials started coming in, when friends of mine or people I had never met before were saying, one girl said that she had tried everything under the sun, and this is the first thing that actually worked, and it worked for her almost immediately. So, for me, it took time, but for some people, they were getting immediate results, and, it's been really incredible. So.
Well, and I know you said it took time to work, and what we know about cannabis right now is there's no really perfect doses, right? It's kind of like you feel your way through. If something's not working, you try something else. And a lot of times the dose that you take stops working, so you have to adjust the dose, which, happens in pharmaceuticals as well. The question I have is, so no THC. Talk to me about that. So
this is like a really great education point. So I'm glad you brought that up. There is technically less than 0.3% THC. And so if you hear of, someone talking about a full spectrum CBD oil, what that means is it's going to have the full spectrum of cannabinoids. And so CBD is just one of those, and I'm sure you know this, it's one of over 140 or so, THC being one of them. So we do sometimes get that question a lot. So technically there's just a touch of THC, but nothing psychoactive.
And what about you on your own? Are you taking THC at all? Or are you just sticking to CBD?
These days I'm pretty much sticking to CBD. I was using some marijuana to kind of help me with some pain, but, I really don't need to anymore. I just don't even think about it. I forget to take my tincture now because of how well it's been working. So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, for anybody that wants to explore with this medicine, you can reach out to us at Cultivate. So, thank you so much. And again, like I told Christina and Gary, it's very important we share these stories, because the more people hear these stories, the more it's going to sink in, and people are going to, understand that, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's a big reason why we did this webcast. Is it breaks my heart for people to suffer in so much pain when they have this avenue. So I encourage you to continue sharing your story and reaching out to young women and letting them know that there is something out there to help them.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more. Thanks for helping get these stories out there.
All right, Tatum, thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too.